study tonight, that this is a diagram of the way. It is an illustration and a picture they say is worth 1,000 words, right? And so when we look at this, it allows us to see that God went to great length to restore us, to bring us back to Him and to paradise. So tonight we're going to look at that. I'm going to pull this over just a little, but if you don't mind, I would like to leave this so we can use it actually as a teaching tool. Can everyone over there see okay? Great. Really? Can you see all right? Okay. When Eve was tempted by the serpent, and she said she was beguiled, and the New Testament declares that, the serpent knew her weaknesses. He knew. And so he came at her from those points. And what I will suggest to you today is that we all share those same weaknesses that she had. He could have used that ploy on any of us. Now, we all would like to think, I would like to think that if I were in paradise, I would not take a bite of that fruit. I would like to think that. Most of you that know me know better. And so there were 3 specific things that he came at her with. And one of them is he caused her to doubt that God is an adequate and a generous provider. And in fact, he said, did God say that you just can't eat of all the trees in the garden? No, all but one. How many trees would God need to put in the garden so that that one would not be a temptation? And just like me, how full does my glass have to be in order for me to be satisfied? I have a half full glass, and I don't even notice because I'm too busy looking at the empty portion. We want more. We want bigger. Get us a house, we want something nicer. A car, we want it to be faster. We want newer clothes, better clothes. There is something within us that needs more. The other thing that he tempted her with was that when she looked at that fruit, she looked at it and it looked good. It looked good for food. And again, that is the way that we are. In fact, we look for things that look good. If a person is looking for a spouse, what are they looking for? A good-looking one, right? No? If you learned your lesson. Most of the time, we're looking for something that would attract us in a spouse, not realizing that there would come a day when he or she might not even be good to look at. You might not would even want to see them. You know, and I'm not just talking about the fact that they age and go through that. I'm talking about that when you know someone, you get to see behind the facade. And you may not like what you see. The other thing is that he tempted her to be her own God. We all fall for that one. He told her that she would be like the gods. She was made in the image of God. How could she have been more like God? But we all want to rule our own lives, make our own choices, and those are the 3 things that she fell to. And you know, when they fell and they were cast out, then the gate became closed again. I want you to take a look at the gate, if you will. Because here is the gate, and at the gate, there are ministering spirits here. And interesting because actually the Lord made this, God made the sacrifice behind the gate while still in the garden, right? Before they were cast out. So I'm going to suggest to you that here is an altar, and behind the gates is another altar. And when we look at this, actually, there are 3 altars, although we only see 2. We see this altar of sacrifice, and then in the holy place, we see an altar of incense. But I will ask you, where was Jesus crucified? Behind this gate? Or outside of it? Right? He was crucified outside the gate. The other thing that I find very interesting is that they keep coming back to the gate. They know. We know that gate was never open to them again. That gate remained closed to them. And when you look at the sanctuary, you need to know it's very restricted. It is closed to many people. In fact, a female cannot go behind the gate. She's cast out. A man who's the patriarch of the family can go behind the gate, but only to bring a sacrifice. A priest can go behind this gate to go into the holy place, but he cannot go behind this one unless he is the great high priest. He cannot go into the most holy place. So there's lots of restrictions within this diagram that we have. But God made a promise. He made a promise to the woman that she would have a son. And one of their descendants wanted the birthright so bad he could taste it. And he had a brother whose it rightfully was, and he actually despised it. Jacob and Esau. Jacob wanted it so bad. Caused a big family feud. Jacob has to leave home. And on his journey to his relatives, he decides to go by way of where Abraham offered Isaac on what is now called Bethel, because Jacob named it Bethel. And when he went there that night, put his head on a rock, he had a dream. And in this dream, he saw that the gate was open. Not only is there a gate, he was so excited because, he had heard tell, he lived in an area where the people were looking for the way back. And he saw it. And he was so excited. And he said, and Jacob waked up out of his sleep and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. You see, Adam and Eve were cast out of the house of God. Were they not? Into outer darkness. With no way back in. They had been told that if they ate from that fruit, they would die. And then the devil told them, no, you won't. You won't die. They ate from the tree. They didn't die. In tree And so God gives them an object lesson before he sends them out into outer darkness to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He gives them an object lesson because he wants them to know and understand why they did not die. And when Jacob looks up and he sees there really is a portal into heaven, and he saw these ministering individuals, these angelic beings, ascending and descending on it, he knew that he was in the house of God. There is a way back. That's what he knew. There was a way back. And he was so excited. And so he named it Bethel, house of God. House of God. What an exciting thing for us to know even. So I want to talk just a little bit about this altar that's outside the gate and then the altar that is behind the gate. Because when Jesus came, he was sacrificed on a cross outside the gate. And the last time that we spoke, I shared with you that straight ahead, because this actually faces east, which is good for us because the temple did too. It faces east, and so straight ahead of us, about 3,000 feet, would be considered outside the gate. That would be far enough away from the temple. And that the red heifer was offered outside the gate. And I know that tradition says that Christ was crucified west of the sanctuary. If you're Catholic, if you're Protestant, you might be inclined to believe that it's north. You might challenge that tradition and think it's north. I personally shared with you the last time we met that I think we ought to look at the Mount of Olives. And that is because that's where the red heifer was sacrificed. Now I want to share something with you. When the woman was deceived and she brought the man the fruit, what did he do? He ate it. What do you think he should have done? He should have told her no? Yes. And when God came to him and said, Adam, what have you done? He said, it was the woman. He loved the woman that God gave him supremely. The same way that I love my children. I love my grandchildren. I know you do too. He loved the woman the same way that Christ loves the church. And he was telling God, I would rather die with her than live without her. He had just lost his godly image, but he never looked more like the Father. But I have to tell you this. He was lacking in faith in the Father. If he had conviction in the Father, that the Father loved her as much as he did, that he loved her more. He would have said to her, oh, Eve, I hate that you ate from the tree. We need to go to the Father, knowing that he would have a plan. We didn't know that. I can't fault them. I've done that. How many times have you brought your children to this altar, asking the Lord to claim them, and when he roughs them up a little bit, which they justly deserve, what do? You intercede. We should not. I will tell you too that Adam could have been an intercessor. Who knows? Now, I don't want to speculate very much, because it is what it is. We are where we are.
Excuse me, what do you, Adam could have what? I didn't hear that.
Been the intercessor.
Oh, good. Amen.
He could have been the intercessor. God can do much through one righteous man or woman. But there was none. See? There was none. And so God interceded on behalf of them. And Adam went with her outside the gate. Christ Jesus went with his woman outside the gate also. Where Adam went with her because he would rather die with her than live without her, Christ said, I would rather die for her than live without her. So he goes outside the gate and he gets the woman and he brings her and her offspring back into the house. Well, in looking at that, when God made an offering on the altar, he came to where they were, and he offered the innocent life. Now that is a type of what God did for us. Because when was the lamb slain? Was it when? It surely was. Right there in Revelation it tells us the lamb was slain from the foundation of the world. So God did a demonstration. He was showing them through an object lesson why they didn't die. Because he had said they would and the devil said they would not. It was important that we know and understand why they did not. And when he brought his offering, we know that he being Jesus, is the propitiation or the reconciliation or atoning sacrifice. It depends upon which translation you read, for our sins. And not for ours only, speaking of the Jews, but also for the sins of the whole world. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Now, according to this, who loves Eve the most? Who loves your children the most? And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. The last time that we visited, we talked about heavenly priesthoods. We talked about the Luciferian, and we talked about the Messianic order. And I told you that in the garden there were two trees, and these trees represented these priesthoods. There it is. Now, which tree did Eve eat from? This one. She ate right by this one. And Adam, which one did he eat from? This one. But when God called Adam, what did he do? He came and he brought the woman with him. Right? So it's at that point that he entered into a different priesthood. The Luciferianism is a belief system that includes both theistic and atheistic denominations and is therefore heavily influenced by differing personal beliefs. So they can't have a creed because they can't come to an agreement. Considered by many to be a religion, but by some to be a philosophy or way of life, Luciferianism as a whole has no specific dogma to which its followers adhere. And why do you think that's so? Probably because they do whatever they want to do. If it feels good, do it. And it doesn't matter how it feels to the other person. If it feels good to you, do it. Rather, it encompasses a broad range of beliefs with numerous personal variations ranging from the veneration of a literal deity and the practice of occultism to a secular set of principles that use mythology references as a form of symbolism and cultural tradition. In Judges it says, in those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Would you say that we're living in a day like that? Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. We know that by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. God in our place. So it says, for by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive. But now Christ is risen from the dead and become the firstfruits of them that slept, but every man in his own order. Christ the firstfruits, afterward they that are Christ at his coming. Now I will ask you, if you are eating from the tree of life, what kind of fruit will you bear? The fruit of the Spirit, right? The love, the joy, the peace. But if you eat from this tree, which is the tree of death, tree of knowledge of good and evil, what will you be like? You will hate. You will be filled with it. Because that's what you're feasting on. Now, having said that, I want to say this. God, in his wisdom, has done many things to draw men to him so that they would know about his priesthood, about that of the Melchizedek order, so that we would know indeed to come to the tree of life and to eat that fruit in abundance, so that we would bear those fruits of the Spirit. And so he has found many ways to express himself to humanity. And every time he does, this other order, this Luciferian, comes in and steals his symbolism. It steals the things that God has set forth for us. And he puts a spin on it. He twists it. He turns it upside down, inside out. And we become confused. There is a tendency within every man and woman to worship. That's a gift from God. It is in us to be drawn to something greater than we are. And so the spirits, when they beckon us, we go. We must try those spirits, right? Because they are not all holy. Some of them are unholy. So, in order for us to know and understand certain things, Jesus said, I am the gate. Right? That's what Jacob was so excited about, was there's this gate. And Jesus said, I am this gate. I am the gate, and whoever enters through me will be saved. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. You see, when you were born outside of the gate. You're outside of the house. You are a son of Adam, or a daughter of Adam. To be a son of God, you must find your way through the gate. There's lots of things about this particular day. Aaron and Miriam, when they were fussing about Moses, God had them come and meet him at the gate so he could talk to them. He also came and met Moses at the gate. I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure if it's this one, this one, this one. I'm not sure about Moses. But I know this. If this is a type of what God would do for us, we know that there is something in heaven that this represents. But we also know that even here on this earth, there is a temple. What is it? This is the temple. And my heart is the door to that temple. And that's why Christ says, I stand at the door and I knock. Right? And I want to enter in. The other thing I know is this, that if I will let him in, he will come in and he will sup with me. Now, having said that to you about the door and about the gate, if God says there is a portal into heaven and there's a door and a gate, you know that John the Revelator saw an open door, right? He saw an open door, and when he looked through the open door, what did he see? He saw something probably very similar to what Jacob saw. He got to see into heaven. So if indeed there is a door there, and Christ has promised that we can enter back in through this door, do you think that Satan would create a counterfeit? Oh, I think he might. He most assuredly might. We just had a big uproar in our nation. Maybe some of you missed it. I'll share it with you. We decided that we were so upset because in Syria, ISIS is destroying their culture and their artifacts, blowing them up off the face of the earth. They are also killing a lot of people. But we really got worked up over the material goods. So, we decided that to preserve culture history, we would make a model, or what I would call an image, to one of these idols, or one of these temples. And it is, there it is, the temple of Baal. Now this is gone now. They absolutely blew it to smithereens. It is gone. New York Times had an image of it before they blew it up. You could see it from an aerial view, and when they blew it off of the face of the earth, it was gone. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to capture this gateway. And they wanted to make an image to it and bring it to New York City, Times Square, and in London. And set them up for everybody to come and see and walk through and partake of the temple of Baal. Familiar with that name? Baal. So, we as Christians squared up in the U.S. They were going to also take them all across the world, into all the different cities across the world, and let everybody in the world partake of this. And so because the Christians got so upset, they decided instead to do this. Same city, but to do this triumphant arch. And they didn't bring it to New York. They took it to London. Test the waters a little. Same thing. It's the same thing. This is Satan's version of this. Just like this is the type of what Jesus wants to do for us, this is what the Luciferian promises to do. These are gates. And when you set them up, what you're saying to Baal and to the demons and to Lucifer is, oh, our God, we long for you. We want you to come and enter in. So Satan always has counterfeit. This would be one of those. And you know what? We have talked about those ancient ones and their superstitions many, many times, and scoffed and made fun of them. But is our generation not doing the exact same thing? We most assuredly are. And this is what God says. Speaking of our generation, I believe, it's in 2 Thessalonians. He says, for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. You see, they have partaken from the fruit of the tree of good and evil, and they like it. They've acquired a taste for it. In Isaiah, he says, I also will choose their delusions and will bring their fears upon them, because when I called, none did answer. You see, they want to go back into paradise. We all do. We all do. But when God calls us, they don't answer. We don't answer. None did answer. When I spake, they did not But they did evil before mine eyes, and chose that in which I delighted not. In Lebanon, there's a temple complex called Baalbek. And it's in the Becca Valley, but up on one of the rises. This has puzzled mankind for many years. Now this we're pretty familiar with. You know that looks like Greece or Roman. This is definitely Roman, these columns. But beneath that, there are these blocks that have been quarried. We don't know how they did it. Because they weren't even agrarian in their society, we think. We thought they were just old hunters and gatherers. And we have no idea how they could be so advanced. Cranes that we have today can pick these up, but they can't move them. So how did they get them from the quarry to where they are? Great mystery. Great mystery. We don't know the answer to that. But this is what we do know. This town, the word Baalbek, may mean God of the Becca Valley, or God of the town, depending on different interpretations of the word. The Phoenician term Baal simply means Lord or God, and the ancient legends assert that Baalbek was the birthplace of Baal. It's certain our counterfeit for everything God does. It certainly does. Now let's compare God's sanctuary to the temples of the world, because they are all over the planet. They're all over the planet. And they are massive in size, and they are grand, and they are glorious. Made out of the finest materials. And then what does God do with his little sanctuary? It's tent. It's just a tent. You know, it looks like this is a permanent building, but really they were bars. And then they were covered with these fabrics. And you see these fabrics that are up here? It made this covering, this tent. And it could be taken down and moved and set back up. Now, why do you think we know God is humble? He's humble. But more than that, this is not our home, people. We are just passing through. This is a temporary sanctuary while we are in this world. Okay? And we can take it down and go with us. That's the most important thing. Is that wherever we go, he goes. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. You know, Israel had a really hard time staying faithful to God and hanging with this Melchizedek order. Because, you know, they were tempted. That's what I want to say. I want you to notice some other things about this altar here. Not only the sanctuary, but God's altar is very different. And let's look at some of the differences. First off, do you see the difference in the garments that they're wearing? Now, this is the great high priest, but he would not have this on all the time. He only wears it once a year on the Day of Atonement. Most of the time, if you could look into the sanctuary and see the Levitical priesthood ministering there, which, by the way, the Levitical priesthood is a type of the Melchizedek order. Right? It's a type of that. It's Christ wanting to say to us, let me tell you about my priestly order, the heavenly one, that I have invited you, mere mortals, not only men, but women too, to enter into my sanctuary and serve me in the priesthood. So I want to give you an illustration of what that might be like. That's what they are. They're just a type. But if you notice, they come up around Baal, they come up a step. In Israel, the priests wear undergarments. God doesn't want you showing your backside to the whole world. We have a tendency to do that. He doesn't want us to. He doesn't want them walking up steps. Baal, he's a fertility god. They are there for a particular purpose. Whoever's coming up to offer the sacrifice would be very inclined to reveal himself. That is what it is. The other thing that I want you to notice is this. As they're working around the sanctuary, they're making animal sacrifices. What are we sacrificing over here?
Children.
We are. Right here we are. And I want to talk to you about that just a little bit. Because I'm going to tell you some of the things about serving Baal and the other gods. They would come to Baal and they would have illicit sexual activity, human sexuality. And you know, I truly believe that the reason that Satan wants to pervert that union between a man and a woman so badly is because it is the only thing we have. That union between a man and a woman that have in a relationship, a love, abiding, affectionate relationship. It's the only thing we have that can even begin to demonstrate to us the union of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. And when you pervert that, then you distort that. And you can't have any appreciation, not only of the union that they have, but the fact that He has invited you to come and partake of that union. Amen. So, when the Israelites built the golden calf, and they danced around it, why do you think God was so upset? Because they were engaging in those types of things. And the thing about it is that, you see, you do whatever you want. Do what you want. If it feels good, do it. And it doesn't matter how it feels to someone else. In Sodom and Gomorrah, when those angels were there, and those men came knocking on Lot's door, we want those men. They don't care if those men want them to want them or not. They force them. Where you take. And if you have that kind of relationship in human sexuality, can you possibly have that oneness? No. Not at all. Not at all. And when you're engaging in these kinds of things, you not only force adults, children too. Children too. In fact, when you worship these gods and a young lady, young girl, comes of age, 11, 12, they dress her up. They put makeup on her. Oh, sorry. They dress her up, Carol, and they put makeup on her. And she smells good. And she's excited because they're treating her like a grown-up. You know? And then they send her down to the temple. And she sits on the steps of the temple. And when a man comes along willing to pay a price for her, he gives her a token. And then he has his way with her for a period of time. Is she going to be the same little girl that she was before? No, she will not. And then the money he gives her, she must give to the temple. Now, if a child should come from that union, most probably it's going to be given to the temple also. And then that child will serve in the temple and will start that cycle all over again. Because they serve the fertility children. So it's about that time that Baal needs a sacrifice. It's a form of birth control. It's a form of birth control. They bring their children to Baal, and they light a fire right there in his lap, let the hands get hot, and they put that child in those hot hands. God, that baby. Have the drums going as loud as they can so that they cannot hear them. Now, why would I tell you these things? We're seeing the same kinds of things happening in our society today. It is the children that are suffering. It is the children that are being taken advantage of. It is the children that are being used and abused. And when a child is born out of inconvenience of those unions, what do we do? Or should I have said conceived? What do we do? We sacrifice it. We abort it. I want to speak to you just a little bit about some of the different individuals that were priests unto the Lord. When you saw the very first picture, you saw Adam outside of the gate with an altar because his family would periodically bring a sacrifice to the gate and fire would come down and consume it because Adam had entered into the priesthood. Once the Lord called his name and he went to him, he entered into that priesthood. And I have to ask you, what order did he enter into? The Levitical? Did he enter into the Luciferian? Or did he enter into the Melchizedek? Of course, he entered into the heavenly one. And as the patriarch of his family, when Noah got off the boat and he offered a sacrifice unto the Lord, who was he offering it unto? Is it Luciferian? Or was he as a Melchizedek or a Levitical? Levi hadn't even been born, right? Levi had not even been born. This is a map of the Middle East. And here we have a lot of history in this area. Here we have Iran and Iraq. If you study history, then you know the Medes and Persians made up this, what's now called Iran, and there's Iraq, which is Babylon. And we have the Saudi Arabia, which, if you are familiar with your Muslim neighbors, Mecca is in Saudi Arabia. It's one of their sacred cities. Here is the area of Jordan, and there's Israel. Jordan has a capital city called Ammon. And that's a leftover from the Ammonites. The Ammonites were descendant of Lot, as was the Moabites. These were the descendants of Lot with his daughters. And then down below would have been the Edomites, those of Esau. And then Israel. And above that is Syria and Lebanon. Syria, right now, is where ISIS has a very stronghold. Is in Syria. A lot of grief is happening there in Syria. Many people are being destroyed in this area. And then above that is Turkey. So what we're going to do is blow this part of it up just a little bit so that we can take a little better look at all of this. In Turkey is now called Turkey because it's the land of the Turks, but they haven't always been there. Before Turkey was here, we had before that, we had the Armenians. They lived here, all of this area right here, the Armenians. Now they're really got up into this little bitty area. And the reason that I share that with you is because they have a history that's older and more ancient. Their civilization is more ancient than anyone else can document. And science has come back and challenged that, even with the genetics and various other things that has come right back and actually supported their claims. They have a historian who in the 5th century went back and wrote down all of their history, their auditory history. He wrote it down, and through that history, they claim to be descendants of Japheth and go all the way back to the ark. That's right up there where Mount Ararat is. Turkey over on this side is where the 7 churches are. Lots of history in this area. Right here at Lake Van, there's a big mountain there. And it's actually a volcano. And according to their history, theirs and the Muslims that live there, the Arabs that live there now, Nimrod, that was his summer home. He built a kingdom there. And God, of course, he rebelled against God. God got mad at him and blew the top off of it. Yeah. So now it's just a lake. It's a big crater with water. And they also have a mountain that's named after Nimrod, too. So lots of history in this area. But the thing that I want to talk to you about is this. Here's their historian. In eastern Turkey, they have all of these ancient places. And these were people that were filled with paganism. In there's also Haran. You know about Haran? That's where Abraham, when he and his father left Mesopotamia, they came to Haran, where they came that would be in Turkey. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up is there's also a place called Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe, they now decided is the oldest temple known to man. And it's very intriguing. We don't really know what to make of it because it's not like the other temples. And lots of people that have looked at it have mentioned Noah's name and his son Shem in connection of this Göbekli Tepe. We don't know what to think about it yet. We've only uncovered about 5% of it. And I think I have a picture of it. I can pull that out. But in this temple, what's really intriguing about it is that, again, they don't know how these old hunter-gatherers did all that. Totally fascinating. The Armenians they contend with 2 other nations for being the first Christian nations. There's 3 of them, 3 nations that claim to be the first Christian nation. Armenia is one of them. Ethiopia is another one, and Georgia, that's just right below Russia. They all 3 claim. Armenia has a good history. Bartholomew and Thaddeus were the ones that came to them and ministered to them. And so they have remained Christian this whole time. And before 6 million Jews were killed in World War II through the Nazis, and World War I through the Turks, 1.5 million Armenian Christians were killed. Most of the world doesn't even know that. And they wanted to be recognized that it was genocide and that they were killed specifically because they are Christians. And the reason that I bring that up to you is because we're seeing these same things happening all over the globe. Right now, the hot spot is Syria, but there are 50 of the hottest spots in regard to Christian martyrdom they've identified across the world. Christian martyrdom has hit an In fact, it says that between 2006 and 2011, there were 144 countries where Christians were being harassed in some way because of their beliefs. Christians have a 10% greater likelihood to be harassed for their beliefs than Muslims do, and are almost twice as likely to receive harassment when compared to Judaism. Nearly 67% of Christians in the world today live in dangerous neighborhoods where there are natural risks in play. Because Christians are also likely to be part of an ethnic, culture, or linguistic minority, this further increases the risk of something negative happening to them. In the last year, nearly 70% of the Christian martyr cases from around the world originated in just one country, Nigeria. Between 1917 and 1980, nearly 15 million Christians died while living in prison camps where they were placed because of their faith. And it is estimated that 100 million Christians are being persecuted for their faith around the world right now. 100 million. And you know, I have read that passage in Revelation chapter 6, verse 9 through 11, and it said, "And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also, and their brethren that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled." Now read that to you. Because in this world, standing with Christ can be hazardous to your health. And we forget that. And so, in talking about this altar, remember, Christ came to the altar that was outside the gate. The Father himself, as the patriarch of the household, offered the lamb right here. Because, you know, we say that our faith goes by way of the cross. And we want to bring our children to the altar of God. Well, the first step is going to the cross. And Christ died on that cross. And when you go to the cross, when the soldier thrust into his side and the blood and the water came out, that comes on you and it has a cleansing effect. And that's what draws you to the gate, you see. And when you come to the gate, it's open. This gate is open all the time. People can see in it and see through it. It's open. And once you do that, now you can enter in at the gate. But what's the first thing that you do? You bring
because I get into satisfaction and enjoy them, but because we are talking about the altar. And because I think we live in a day and time when we may need to know. We need to know the cost. I want to play something for you.
Can you imagine I feel very sorry for what how long will it go on for? I don't know. God, I don't know. God, I don't know. We have something more important than anything else that makes us stay in the country. What that something is the life-giving message from the Lord. And we are kind of ambassadors of the Lord. We know that in many countries that would lose their ambassadors, which is bad enough. But if heaven withdrew its ambassador from the country, it's a disaster. Our privilege is not that we are able to leave. Our privilege is that we are able to stay for such a time in the country. And I always say this statement, and I believe it from the bottom of my heart.
There is a lady in Homs area who insisted to stay during this difficult time, just to reach out to those families and women who are in need. She's risking her life literally every day, and she goes from home to home just to, check on those families and see what they need, what they, daily problems, give them some support, buy them, just imagine, buy them meat and bread and stuff like that. So she is a true soldier of Christ during this difficult time. Who dares to go to homes these days? I mean, it's very risky, very, very dangerous. Yet, she is doing this on daily basis. She goes from home to home and check on children because she's a Sunday school teacher. And she tries to keep the children busy with Bible verses. So she memorized those Bible verses with them on the phone, and then she goes and visits with them, and they would say it, by heart to her. And she does this on daily basis. She goes and check on her children and women in church, and she doesn't care about, her own life.
It's very obvious that the Lord is doing something amazing. Many people are coming to the Lord, and many people say, we thank God, although we lost everything, but we still we want our souls, or we want Christ in our life. And the Lord is working, and actually the church has a vision. There is very obvious vision that this is the time for the church. This is the day for the church. I believe the Lord has been preparing the church for this day. So we feel very strongly that this is our time.
Does that humble you? For me, when I watched it, it was very humbling to me, to see that way. And I can tell you that this particular presentation is my personal least favorite. So I'm perfectly okay with you thinking it's your least favorite too. But it was not my favorite. It was not the one that I wanted to come out here and tell you. But I do think that we do live in a day and time when we need to know and understand that the Lord's calling us to make a sacrifice. I don't know what pray for your children, you've got to bring them here before you go there. You've got to bring them here and leave them with the Lord. And tell him, Lord, claim my child. You know, the servants of Baal do that. When their children are born, they take their babies and they bring them right up into Baal and they say, claim them as your very own. And we need to do the same thing. We need to bring them to the altar of the Lord. And once you've done that, once you bring your children to the altar of the Lord and say unto him, have your way with them. I want them in the kingdom. Have your way with them. Then as a mother or a father or as a neighbor or a friend, you have the right thing to go up to that altar and provide intercessory prayer for those individuals. Again, I have no idea what that's going to look like for us. But I can tell you this. I get way too caught up in the things of this world and in the ways of this world.
Yeah.
And I am not nearly as forgiving as I should be with my fellow members and with my family and with my loved ones. I'm just not. I don't have that love that he talks about that I need to be eating from that tree. I don't have that. I don't have what that woman had who stayed there in Syria. Really? And those other individuals, and they're saying it's our time. God has called us to be here. He's called the church. And it's our time. And why would it be so? Because many souls are born through adversity, right? Many souls are born through adversity. So, as saints of God, we just need to settle those things in our heart and mind and go where he sends us, be what he would have us be, and do what he would have us do. Let's close in prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, how thankful we are that indeed you would ask us to be